System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' inner city left.
This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Today is Tuesday, March 11th. I am Amin TMK alongside Amoja Lil Tanky Summer. Amoja, hello, my friend. How was your weekend? How is your week doing on this? How are you doing on this Tuesday? Going up on a Tuesday? A lot of things going up in the air.
17 billion 585 million $85,000 spent, just according to the official cost as reported by the Pentagon thus far in this engagement with Iran. Again, not including any explosions, any losses. This is just the operating cost to run war. So
2.5 billion more, and we will have been able to eradicate short-term homelessness in the United States. But, you know, hey, priorities, man, priorities. Hey, you know, I got to say, man, a lot of people, I didn't think this was going to happen. Of course, I'm being sarcastical. But a lot of people didn't expect this war to go poorly for the United States, or at least poorly by what their definition of winning was. Now, if you're here to destroy civilian life, if you're here to cause terror, then America's doing quite a good job. Israel's doing quite a good job. But when it comes to strategic goals being accomplished, not happening. And now, of course, we can say this, right? We are, everyone knows that we feel this way and we're very anti-war, but it's not just us. This is a little bit breaking, and I want to just go ahead and put this up here. Feel free in your own time if you guys want to read the letter, the full letter yourself. But this, of course, is from antiwar.com. Always check them out. I always, just give them a skim every day. But top U.S. counterterrorism official resigns over war with Iran. National Counterterrorism Director Joe Kent announced on Tuesday that he was resigning from the Trump administration over the U.S.-Israeli war against Iran, saying he could not, in good conscience, support the conflict. After much reflection, I have decided to resign from my position as director of the National Counterterrorism Center, effective today. Kent said in his resignation letter to President Trump, which he posted on X, I cannot support in good conscience the ongoing war in Iran and Iran poses no imminent threat to our nation, and it's clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel. I don't know exactly where the level of national counterterrorism director is, like on the board of what's the highest, and
he's two people away. He's one person away from the president. His boss is the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard speaks to the president. So his boss talks to the president. So he's one person away. This is pretty high up. This is a person that, again, this is not me advocating for or against people. I try to say the truthful things that I can about what I know about this person. I know this person was a Texas Ranger. I know this person lost a wife in the quote unquote war on terror. She died in Iraq. So this is a person that's been a lifelong Republican, you know what I'm saying, that has spent his life serving the United States of America. The letter is definitely worth a read. It's quite a good read. And like you said, it is available on anywar.com. It's if you go to his Twitter, it's not hard to find. And the first thing Trump did was immediately tore this dude down, because you can't tell Trump anything that he doesn't want to hear. You know what I'm saying? But this is going badly. And this is going badly in a number of ways, to the point where as people are conscientiously objecting at that high level, what that does That provides a platform for people in the military and other people to give themselves that cover. Because again, this is not some left wing communist. Okay, that's our job. This is a straight up dyed in the wool patriot that has served his country. His wife served this country. You know what I'm saying? Faithfully. This person was 2 steps away from the presidency as far as like a conversation goes, you know, and Trump's not even willing to listen to this person, you know. So what is it going to be, right? That's one of the major things that I see is like, oh, why aren't people out protesting? Okay, I came from them streets. I did that shit. You know, there's all kinds of videos of me all throughout my early career out there doing that shit. The thing is, that doesn't move the state. It doesn't change the direction of the state apparatus. It is an ineffective policy. Now, look, the people that still want to go out and do it, hey, look, learn the way I did. You know what I'm saying? Maybe I did it wrong, but I did it for years. You know, I was very vocal. I used my platform for that. It never once stopped a single fucking war. So now all I can do is talk to people, you know, to at least keep our consciousness right. When a person this high level is telling you what we're being told is not the real thing, I don't know what other kind of a wake-up call you could use. The one thing I will say, too, though, because, you know, never miss an opportunity to talk about the ineffectiveness of the Democrats. How is it that we're getting more pushback on these type of issues, anti-war, from Republicans, hardcore Republicans, than Democrats? There's no Democrat that is out and out rejected this war and threatened impeachment, right? Like going out for a little soundbite for MSNBC or kicking a fucking tweet. That's nothing. You may as well be protesting. It's less effective than protesting because you sit in the government and you can do things. You can start hearings. You know what I'm saying? You can begin proceedings. You can do impeachments, and these things are not being done. All the Democrats are doing, like we told you, is just sitting back, licking their lips, waiting for it to go wrong so that they can capitalize in the midterms without having offered any shred of any policy of what'll be different. They're watching this happen, and no one is putting the screws to Trump at all because they're bought by the same people. They want to see Iran fall too. They were all complicit and selling this war. They can't now in good conscience come out and be like, I reject this war. They can't do that because if one, they don't have the moral authority. 2, they don't really know what is going on. You know, we live in an era of some of the most unenlightened legislators ever. That doesn't mean like woke or not woke. I mean like these motherfuckers don't read. Like they don't know geopolitics. And these things become obvious when you watch AOC go out there and flummox about when asked about, you know, the Taiwan situation, you know. But the fact that we have someone this high to just straight up say, no, I can't do it. Yo, good on him, man. Good on him.
Yeah, Trump came out earlier today, and he was talking about, like you were saying, what was interesting to me is he said that he wasn't strong on security. So your national counterterrorism director is not strong on security? What a weird thing to say about a person that's supposed to be their entire job.
A person that was in the military that didn't have bone spurs.
Well, you mentioned that, so let's bring out a little bit of the little bit of the crash out here. We alluded to Trump, but I won't play this one. I'll play this right here. This is Pete Hegseth being asked, about sort of, is this war going the way that you thought? And, where is your response to sort of everyone saying, including Joe Kent, that this was an enormous mistake? So here we have Pete Hegseth.
Specifically you, the press, specifically you, the press corps, because you cheer against Trump so hard. It's like in your DNA and in your blood to cheer against Trump because you want him not to be successful so bad. You have to cheer against the efficacy of these strikes. You have to hope maybe they weren't effective. Maybe the way the Trump administration has represented them isn't true. So let's take half-truths, spun information, leaked information, and then spin it in every way we can to try to cause doubt and manipulate the public mind over whether or not our brave pilots were successful. How many stories have been written about how hard it is to, I don't know, fly a plane for 36 hours? Has MSNBC done that story? Has Fox? Have we done the story how hard that is? Have we done it 2 or 3 times so that American people understand? How about how difficult it is to shoot a drone from an F-15 or 16 or F-22 or F-35? Or what it's like to man a Patriot battery? Or how hard it is to refuel midair? Giving the American people an understanding of how complex and sophisticated this mission really was. There are so many aspects of what our brave men and women did that because of the hatred of this press corps are undermined because your people are trying to leak and spin that it wasn't successful. It's irresponsible. And folks in this room are privy to that information because of the proximity here in the Pentagon. It's an important responsibility. And time again, classified information is leaked or peddled for political purposes to try to make the president look bad. And what's really happening is you're undermining the success of incredible B-2 pilots and incredible F-35 pilots and incredible refuelers and incredible air defenders who accomplished their mission, set back a nuclear program in ways that other presidents would have dreamed. How about we celebrate that? How about we talk about how special America is, that only we have these capabilities? I think it's too much to ask, unfortunately, for the fake news. So we're used to that. But we also have an opportunity to stand at the podium and read the truth of what's really happening. And the reality is, you want to call it destroyed, you want to call it defeated, you want to call it obliterated, choose your word.
Those were your words.
This was an historically successful attack, and we should celebrate it as Americans. And it gives us a chance to have peace, chance to have a deal, and an opportunity to prevent a nuclear Iran, which is something President Trump talked about for 20 years.
Your response.
So first off, criticism of the war or the execution of the war, first and foremost, isn't necessarily criticism of Trump. You, buddy, Mr. Peter Hegseth, you are the Secretary of War. It's a criticism of you. And like, you understand the ego of Trump so well that you know that, like, if you say, oh, Trump, they're not mad at me, they're mad at you, right? He'll take that because that's the way his ego is wired, you know? But the fact of the matter is, this has been piss poor planning and everyone knows it. So first off, let's acknowledge something. The goals keep changing because realistically, they probably AI'd out a strategy. I doubt seriously there's anyone there that really sat down and looked at what it takes to control the apparatus to continue the flow of the petroleum. Because understand this, the spice must flow. That's more important than regime change or any of their other secondary or tertiary items that they're talking about. They talk about the nuclear program. That's bullshit. You know, everyone knows that. How about this? Multiple intelligence agencies in the United States of America had already stated that Iran was nowhere near or had not begun any type of militarization that could create a nuclear weapon. They had the material capable of doing so if it was further refined to a point that has never been seen in Iran, right? Because you cannot make a nuclear weapon with 60% uranium. It takes like 90 to 99%. Like, it's really extremely high levels of uranium that are refined to a very particular isotope. And they're not there. They're at 60%. Okay. So all the talk about nuclear stuff, that's just a smokescreen. That is a distraction. Okay. So if you wanted to bring about regime change, that's one goal. But more important than that, for the sake of the American economy and the way that this civilization is predicated, is ensuring there would be no disruption of the petroleum supply. Okay. Now, there are certain things that the Americans had going for them that no other country would have had. For example, Iran understood from an existential point of view they could not draw the first strike. Why would you do that? Why would you court nuclear annihilation by striking the United States first? So they knew they could not hit until America hit. They had stated several times, quite explicitly, after their hit, all bets are off. Securing the oil flow should have been the first concern of the Secretary of War. There should have been troops landed at the Strait of Hormuz, right? Force the Iranians to hit you and use that as your casus belli, right? But without securing the Straits of Hormuz, this was always going to happen. That was the very first thing that was going to happen. You could count on the Strait of Hormuz being closed more than you could count on the certain retaliation that Iran rained down upon all the Gulf nations that were hosting American forces, right? I just want to remind you again of how cute the American position was. They would launch strike packages, okay, from Israel, launch logistics and supply assets from the Gulf states, right? So, like, you're not technically flying the F-35 from, Qatar, but you are flying the refueling plane that refuels the F-35 and the F-15 and the F-22 that's coming in to shoot that drone with $1 million missiles for a $20,000 drone. Like, just the math of this shit is mind-blowing, right? They never did what they needed to do to secure the Straits of Hormuz. And this is why Iran is able to do their most powerful move, right? More than a nuclear missile or any of those other things that they continue to hypothetically assume Iran was going after. Iran always straight up said, our primary weapon is we can disrupt the flow of petroleum. And they've done that. And the markets are crashing. Just the amount, trillions of dollars are falling off the world economy. And like, we are in a race, right, between not just the petroleum supplies that the world has, which most countries don't have that much, right? And 20% is taken off the market right now, 20 to 40%. That's what the Strait of Hormuz represents. Now, when he's saying it's just Americans, everyone is turning this down. He's reached out to all of these NATO partners. Everybody has said no. Here's a quote from French General Yakovlev. The United States asks us for help and wants us to share in the cost of this fiasco. Joining Trump's coalition today is like buying a ticket to dinner and dancing on the Titanic the evening after it hit the iceberg. This is a French general, right? So it's not just like, oh, the woke media, they don't like me. The world sees what you've done. You've mishandled this entire thing so deeply. And right, again, just out of sheer arrogance, he doesn't even take the blame. The planning was on you, Peter Hegseth. And you were the one who went to the president and said, oh, this is my plan and this will be easy, even though we had admirals straight up saying, this is not a good plan. This will not be easy. It's, success has a million fathers, but failure is an orphan. And like, now we playing hot potato. We got people resigning. The Secretary of State is the Secretary of War is crashing out. You know what I'm saying? And the president is in denial.
I got one more to show because it is a full regime. I'm going to just call it a regime because that's what Trump is. This is a regime. Like miss me with other countries being a regime. This is a freaking cabal. But this is, Mike Johnson. He's like the most like fuddy-duddy, like most deep state type dude, Speaker of the House. Everybody's getting it, bro. Everybody. So this is from C-SPAN. This is Mike Johnson being asked about Joe Kent.
That proposition at the end is clearly wrong. I'm on the Gang of Eight. I got all the briefings. We all understood there was clearly an imminent threat, that Iran was very close to the enrichment of nuclear capability, and they were building missiles at a pace that no one in the region could keep up with. They were far outpacing our allies and friends and us in our defense capability because we had personnel, installations, members of the armed services, and civilians in the region. Iran was building up ballistic missiles at such a rapid pace, and we knew that their plan was to fire them upon Americans. The commander-in-chief and his administration had a very difficult decision to make. I don't know where Joe Kent is getting his information, but he wasn't in those briefings clearly because the Secretary of State, the Secretary of War, and everyone, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Kane, they had exquisite intelligence, and we understood that this was a serious moment.
Can I ask why the director of national counterterrorism is not involved with these meetings? And I also just
it'd be foolish to believe that he wasn't. It'd be foolish to believe that he wasn't.
Right. I mean, this is like, again, I think it's just at a level where there is no, and I've been talking to you about this, and I've been talking to a lot of people about this. This proves, like, the way that Iran is going and the way that the media in general is discussing Donald Trump is to let you know how bad we've actually had it here for quite some time. Because the rest of the world is looking at us like, obviously, you made a huge mistake. Obviously, this was a very bad decision, a stupid decision. And we have been talking about the ballistic missiles, so we know what their capabilities are. So when you have Mike Johnson here saying, well, we knew that they were building up their missile capacity. Well, I wonder why. I wonder, it's like that weird causality.
That's not illegal. I mean, a sovereign state is going to do that. It's not illegal for a sovereign state to be building up a deterrence capability, which clearly they fucking need it.
They need it. Right? And now they're trying to run this idea that, well, they had to attack first because if they didn't attack first, then, Iran would attack them. But then Iran still attacked you and it's still winning a lot. I mean, it's just like the narratives are so ridiculous. And we've been receiving this narrative for our domestic needs and the things that we want in America to get done. And we have to deal with sort of the absurdity of the rhetoric of these presidents and Mike Johnson and Pete Hegseth crashing out. Again, Trump has been crashing out all week. Right. There's a bunch of things we could have played from him, but it is turning up. Any final thoughts there on that? Yeah,
I think it's worth remembering, too, Mike Johnson, when he became the Speaker of the House, strictly dictated that I am a wartime speaker. But the Americans weren't at war. At that time, the Israelis were. So you're saying straight up your out and out obligation is to being essentially a wartime Speaker of the House for Israel, for a country that you are not a citizen of. Right. So this is hardly the person to go to like, oh, well, I'm not Trump. You know what I'm saying? This is my views on Kent. This person is at least as compromised as Trump is. It just goes to, again, the nature of how pervasive these people have been compromised, deeply compromised, which, again, Kent is explicitly stating in his letter. You know what I'm saying? These are people who don't see themselves as servants to America first and foremost. They see themselves as protectors of Israel. Lindsey Graham, I'ma die with Israel. The day I die, I'ma be for Israel. Like, you're supposed to be for your constituents in South Carolina. You know what I'm saying? Like Mike Johnson, you're supposed to be for your constituents. You're supposed to be for the American people. Like, you are the Speaker of the fucking House. You're third in line for the presidency, and you're compromised. Like, but again, the fact that these people who are not military people at all are criticizing, right, the intelligence gathering of a person that worked for the Director of National Intelligence, it's not realistic. It's not, you can't have a serious conversation about it. The more they talk, the more they expose themselves.
People don't like when we say things like World War III. I don't get it. I don't get what the language thing is. Like, why there's a war in Venezuela right now. There's a war sort of, or maybe the war has been won. If you can hear sort of the things that Venezuela is doing. I know they just opened up their American embassy again. They're letting people in. So that was a war. What about in Cuba right now? I think Cuba might be experiencing war-like, when it comes to the blockade, when their entire country is now in a blackout and you can't perform surgeries and people can't move through the world. So I guess maybe that doesn't count as a world war. And we see
Polling USA has data on that. I'm going to give it right back to you. 61% of the American public oppose attacking Cuba. 13% support it. Among those that support, 30% are Democrats. 9% are independents. You know what I'm saying? So, this is, no one is for this. This is just pure naked hegemony, right? The reason why people are against the phraseology of World War III is because, unfortunately, there's only one person that's tied to all of that, and that's the United States. And people refuse to intelligently look at the actions of our foreign policy and see it in an aggressive manner. Like, it is not for the United States to pick the leader of Venezuela. It is not for the United States to pick the leader of Iran. It's not for the United States to steal their resources. It's not for the United States to depose the government of Cuba. There is no mandate, not from the American people, not from the United Nations, not from the Cubans, not from the Venezuelans who live there, right? Not from the Cubans who live there, not from the Iranians who live there, the last thing I'll say about the World War III deniers, what we're seeing right now is the continuation, the final stages of the domino effect, but only played out through American hegemony, right? All of the people that existed to embarrass the United States or resist in one way or another, people that, spoke flippantly about American leadership, or refused to comply with the United States economic demands of who they can and cannot do commerce with, those countries get destroyed. Venezuela gets destroyed. They're trying to destroy Cuba. They're trying to destroy Iran, and again, for any liberal tries to come for me, don't say shit about what happens in Iran if you haven't had shit to say about what is happening in Qatar, what is happening in Israel, what is happening in the United Arab Emirates, right? These countries are monarchies. Israel is not a monarchy, but they're a religious minority, supersedes, controls, right? That's a whole nother thing, right? But I'm saying none of these are human rights stand-ins. So where is the threats against Bahrain, right? The kingdom of Bahrain. Where are the threats and the posturing from the American military about the kingdom of, Saudi Arabia? Which, by the way, 9/11, right? Ooh, that wasn't Iran. Everybody ties everybody to the Saudis and Mossad, right? But those are our strongest allies. Iran didn't have shit to do with it. Iraq didn't have shit to do with it. But these are the countries that got invaded. Syria didn't have nothing to do with it. You have to start looking at how Syria was toppled. Iraq was toppled. The only thing that makes sense geopolitically was they needed an air bridge. You know what I'm saying? To be able to fly Air Force, to be able to attack the Iranians, to make sure that in the Middle East, Israel would have primacy. None of that was a threat to the American national security. It was a threat to American hegemony. And nowadays, I guess that's good enough,
Yeah, exactly. Great point. So, a lot of countries are at war right now. Okay, and if we look at embargoes, if we look at destabilization, we can include places like Niger. We can include places like Somalia. We can include places like Yemen. We can include places like China, and the constant determined feeling to destabilize Taiwan. So it exists everywhere. And the biggest one, of course, and we've been saying this for a while, is the special military operation in Ukraine. So I just wanted to, I know, we're running a little bit long in time, but I just wanted to discuss that because this is still one of the biggest wars we've ever seen. I mean, Ukraine with the, all the backing from the United States, the backing from Europe, against Russia with the, obviously the backing from China and the rest of the global South, their participation in Iran. And I just wanted to, again, talk a little bit about that. There's been, kind of this discussion of Ukraine counteroffensive. Obviously Russia, they might have their own. Obviously, there's an offensive for Russia then too. I just wanted to, if you can, in the next, 5 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever, just kind of give us an update on what's happening with the offensives and the counteroffensives in the special military operation.
Yeah, so that's a great counterpoint, right? According to Dima from Military Summary, it looks like the Russian offensive against Zaporizhia has begun, the spring offensive, which they've been waiting for. War in Ukraine is exceedingly difficult in the winter, right? We're not talking about Napoleon that just runs out and don't really give a fuck about, oh my God, the environment, right? We're talking about Russians who historically understand you don't do war in the winter. You know what I'm saying? So now that we're closer to spring and the snows are melting in Ukraine, the Russian juggernaut is back to moving. They received mostly what you see from Ukraine these days are huge drone swarms that they're flying directly at Moscow. And all of this goes back to exactly what Putin originally discussed all the way back with George W. when they were trying to bring in Georgia, the country, and Ukraine into NATO back then. And Putin said explicitly, I'm not going to fucking allow that to happen, right? Because again, geopolitically, he's already looking at what's happening around Iran. He's watching all of these Gulf countries get, politically captured, by the West and America specifically, having military bases installed that are then later used to attack Iran, right? He sees this thing happening and he watches all of those Baltic states joining NATO. And he's like, Ukraine is a land bridge that is too big. I refuse to allow them to have a land that large to attack Russia with, and so that war has been going on all the time, due to continuation of agenda, right, which Brian Berletic talks about all the time, right? The Americans have been providing targeting information to the Ukrainians, providing satellite information, guidance for missile systems. So then think about the irony, right? When Trump reaches out to Putin, okay, the world's most evil man, as we're told, and he's begging him, why are you giving, satellite information to the Russians? And like Putin in his mind has got to be like, are you fucking serious? Like you've been doing this to us, leading to deaths in the Russian army for 4 years, right? We've given a week of satellite information because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. The United States continues to act like they're not a party to the war in Ukraine, special military operation. Well, Russia's doing the same thing now. And this is the danger, right? This is the oversight. And again, the fact that no one in Washington assumed that the Russians or the Chinese would be providing satellite information for the Ukrainians, the Iranians, that again just goes to how poorly thought out this entire operation has been from start to finish. It was all of the eggs were hoped on having a decapitation strike that would break the will of this country and woe is me. It was the first day of Ramadan. Look, we killed your religious leader. Clearly he's not that, without having any understanding of the Shia faith and how important martyrdom is to that entire culture. But I'll give it to you in language you can understand. If the United States assassinated the Pope, that would not stop Roman Catholicism. And what it would do, in fact, is make Roman Catholics all around the world, of which there are hundreds of millions, inflamed in a way that you would have no idea how to control what they're doing. So I think that goes back to the director of counterintelligence saying, I'm quitting because you're making my job fucking impossible. Iran was not a terrorist threat as it related to the homeland of the United States of America, but now that you've killed their religious leader, I can't make those promises anymore. I cannot guarantee you this will not happen. You're making my job impossible. I resign.
Well said. Let's give a shout out to our podcast listeners. We're available everywhere you find podcasts for now. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other ones. You know, I hope that, you know, you guys find us on other platforms. There's lots and lots of them out there. But, you know, those are by far our biggest, you know, and I don't want to step away. And we've had people saying like, oh, why don't you step away from Apple? Why don't you step away from Spotify? Well, unfortunately, that's where like 70% of our listener base is. At least in terms of our podcast. So find us wherever you find podcasts. You know, like, subscribe. You know, we're headed to 1,000 subscribers, guys, and that's because of you. That's because you're sharing it with your friends. That's because you know, you're showing up, you're leaving us comments, and people want to be a part of something that's growing, and we're absolutely growing. So I want to thank everybody for that. Fables, Foibles, Other American Sins, as you see right behind me, Tanky's book of poetry in the description. I got a new song coming out next week. Me, TMK, everywhere you find music. Little Tanky, everywhere you find music. And, you know, of course, our patrons, y'all are our lifeblood. Without you, I don't think we can continue this. And our Patreon community continues to grow. And it always humbles me. And I just want to, again, say thank you guys. And thank y'all for even getting this far, because I know we talk about a lot of dense stuff, even though it's the most important things. Tanky, any other thoughts, anything we missed?
An educated left is a left that's worth having. You know, I just want to say again, my heart goes out to Cuba. As a person that grew up in the Black leftist tradition, thinking about how they have been a place that provided asylum for Black people that were framed by this country, that this country were trying to kill. I think about all of the effort they put in their resistance struggles, you know, in Africa in the 60s, how many African nations, you know, were supported by Cuban guerrillas, you know, that were able to kick out their colonial masters, right? I think about all that revolutionary support that Cuba has done, and I watch the fucking cowardice of these countries that are around them that will not step up to help this country that has not ever attacked the United States of America, but has been attacked by the United States of America several times in just the past 150 years, going all the way back to Teddy Roosevelt. The fact that there is an American military base in Cuba to this day that they use to torture people. When they talk about torture happens in Cuba, yeah, you fucking know. It's happening in Guantanamo.
Yeah. Well said.
Democrats have not said anything, are not resisting on this on any level, because, again, they're beholding to the same people, those same donors. And this is why the Democrats are just fucking useless. But my heart goes out to Cuba right now.
Yeah, great. Well said. For Amoja, Little Tanky Summer, I'm Amin TMK. This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Peace.
System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' in the city left.